Our youngest daughter goes to college in Los Angeles. And about a month ago, I agreed to drive out to LA with her and help her move into her first apartment, which is quite a landmark in anyone's life. Now, since we're in a worldwide pandemic, we knew this road trip would be different. We wouldn't be able to go inside museums or attractions, and we'd rely on picnics and takeout food rather than sitting in restaurants. So we mapped out a route that took us to outdoor attractions, like 5 national parks, including Yellowstone. Not exactly the most direct route to Southern California, but we had plenty of time. And the trip went smoothly. We were careful to avoid contact with other people, and it was quite a success. Well, it was in Yellowstone National Park where, along with bears and bison, we saw an unusual road sign. It was your typical yellow diamond, but the message said, "Rough break ahead." I thought, that's unusual. And then as we drove by, I wondered why we don't have those kind of warning signs in our lives. Wouldn't it have been nice to have had a warning sign in February that things weren't going to go so well? Rough break ahead. Or maybe at other times in life when we're faced with illness or loss of a job or other disappointments. Rough break ahead. Now, at first I thought, I need that sign in my life. I need to see a warning sign in advance that perhaps the road ahead would be a little rougher than I expected, that maybe I need to look for a smoother path. But really, is that something I want to know? Do I want to spend my life searching for the easy way, only moving forward when I'm sure that there's little risk? In many ways, I think that would become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If my only focus is risk, risk is all that I will have a chance to see, and I'll never develop the courage I need to move forward. In 1862, Fyodor Dostoevsky traveled through Western Europe, and in his writings about that trip, he wrote, "Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see the cursed thing will come to mind every minute." Well, we call that the white bear problem. And a century later, a psychology professor at Harvard University named Daniel Wegner did some experiments to see if it was true. And if you've ever tried Dostoevsky's thought experiment, you'll know what Dr. Wegner found. It is true. The more we try to suppress a thought, the more it pops into our heads. So if we knew the specifics about the rough breaks ahead, if we saw a sign pointing out all the risks that we might encounter, would we still develop the courage we need to address them? Now, that's one thing you might notice about today's gospel. Jesus says to the disciples, "Take courage." And Peter actually has the courage to take the first step out of the boat. Now, that's an interesting thing. Just a few hours earlier, the disciples were courageous enough to give away all of their food, to risk everything they had to feed the people. And they had seen the results of that courage. They ended up with 12 wicker baskets full. But now they're near death on a stormy sea, and Peter still has the courage to respond when Jesus says, "Come." In a death-defying leap of faith, Peter climbs out of the boat and into, or really onto, the water. And then the white bear showed up. Peter knew that he couldn't walk on water. And every time he tried to tell himself not to think about that very important fact, he thought about it all the more. And the doubt started building. The more he tried to suppress thinking about the strength of the wind, the more his mind measured the wind speed. And the more that he thought about it, the more tenuous his position became, until he started to sink. Courage is not the absence of fear. Rather, it is the knowledge that some things are way more important than fear. There's no need for courage if there's no fear. And in our lives today, we certainly need courage. We need courage to be willing to step out of the boat, out of our safe and comfortable place, and into the strong winds of change. Not alone, of course, because we always have the Lord's reassurance. But think about it. The disciples wanted an end to the storm. They wanted calm water and smooth sailing, but Jesus had a different idea. He invited them to walk on the troubled water, to face the heavy winds, to get out of the safety of the boat and be saved in a way that was totally different than their expectations. Look around at our rough breaks. Violence and murder, racism and injustice, poverty and fear. We may wish for the easy road, but is that where Jesus is calling us? Instead, he says, take courage. He invites us to get out of the boat, to dip our toes into the troubled waters, and trust that he will help us do what is impossible on our own. Take courage. Yes, that white bear may show up and we'll focus on the risks, the chance that we might sink, the fear that the problems are too big. But Jesus says, take courage. And when Peter began to sink, he called out, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him. Take courage. Our lives are not about focusing on the risk, on the rough breaks, on the fear, but rather on the journey and the destination. Because with that focus, we can change the world. Because Jesus says, take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid.